My husband had just won Executive of the Year at the company's black tie gala, and I was in the back seat of an SUV, legs shaking, panties stuffed in a stranger's pocket, his mouth on my neck while I whimpered into the leather seats. The driver's side window was cracked open, letting in cold New York air, but nothing cooled what was happening between my thighs. His hand never asked permission. Neither did my moans. I called it madness later. But in that moment, I called it freedom. To my viewers, thank you so much to every single subscriber who has been rocking with this channel. I see your support, and I appreciate you deeply. And to all my new and returning viewers who are yet to hit that subscribe button, what are you waiting for? That little red button is what keeps my stories alive and pouring. Go ahead, subscribe now. And once you are done watching this chapter, tell me everything you think in the comments. I read every word. Now, back to my story. His name was Chase Bentley. 28. Built like a dream I had no business dreaming. Son of my husband's boss. Reckless. Inappropriate. And that night, very available. I had met him before, twice, at Ethan's corporate mixers. He had a look that said, I know what you need and I will ruin you for it. I always avoided that kind of trouble. Until that dinner. I wore a green silk gown that hugged my hips. Ethan chose it, said it made me look presentable. Not stunning. Not beautiful. Just presentable. That was Ethan, efficient, polite, emotionally sterile. We had been married for 10 years. 2 kids. A quiet suburban house with granite countertops and a sex life that could be described as routine on a good month. At the gala, Ethan barely touched me. Not even a dance. I watched him laugh with colleagues while I nursed a glass of rose and scrolled through photos of our kids. Then Chase walked in. His eyes locked on me like he had been searching for me all night. His jaw was sharper than I remembered. His tie loose, hair undone. He leaned down at the table and whispered near my ear, tell your husband congratulations. Then meet me outside in 15. My breath stuttered. I did not reply. I did not smile. But I got up from that table 15 minutes later like I was possessed. I found him leaning against a black SUV by the valet lot, cigarette tucked behind his ear, lips pressed into a smirk like he knew I would come. You are either crazy, I said. Or arrogant. Maybe both, he replied. Get in. It was the wildest decision of my life. I did not even argue. I got in the back seat and shut the door behind me. What happened in that car defied everything I believed about loyalty, about motherhood, about being a wife. He kissed me like he hated how much he needed me. My dress was pulled up by his rough fingers. My thighs trembled as he bit gently into the side of my neck. My moan slipped before I could catch it. Tell me to stop, he growled. I never said a word. We did not have full sex that night, but what happened still felt like betrayal. Oral, grinding, lips on parts of me that had not been kissed in months. I came twice. Once from his fingers. Once from the way he whispered my name while staring into my eyes. When I stepped back into the ballroom, I felt soaked in shame. My lipstick was gone. My hair was a mess. Ethan handed me a flute of champagne and barely noticed. I looked at him, and felt nothing. That was the moment I knew something inside me had broken. Days passed, but that night haunted me. Chase texted. I ignored him. Then he called. I picked. One sentence sealed my fate. You want more, he said. He was right. We met again. This time, I booked a room under the name Rebecca Fox. We stayed 4 hours. I wore nothing but heels and regret. He fucked me like he was trying to erase Ethan from my body. He succeeded. I told myself it was just sex. Just rebellion. Just escape. But by the 3rd time we met, I began thinking about him while folding laundry. While making lunch for the kids. While Ethan sat across the table discussing his quarterly goals. I had crossed from mistake to obsession. Guilt came like waves. I prayed while in the shower. I cried in traffic. I even considered confessing once, but stopped when Ethan forgot our anniversary. He brought home Thai food instead of flowers that night. I slept with Chase the next morning. By the end of that month, I was fucking him in places I should have never stepped into with another man. His condo, Ethan's office, yes, after hours, even the back seat of our family car while parked behind a church. My soul knew I was damned. But my body never felt more alive. One night, as I climbed out of the hotel room bed, I saw a notification on my phone. A calendar alert Ethan had set, dinner with Harold Bentley, 8 p.m. Harold Bentley. Chase's father. My heart dropped. Everything was about to crash. And I was not ready. The hotel mirror had become my confessional. I stood naked in front of it every time after Chase left the room, legs bruised from passion, lips swollen, guilt crawling all over my skin. I never looked away. I studied every red mark, every smudged line of mascara, every kiss print he left on my neck. I stared at the woman I had become, half hating her, half addicted to her rebellion. Back at home, I was a mother folding clothes in silence while the Bluey played in the background. A woman Ethan thanked every now and then for keeping the house together. A wife who once begged for touch until she learned how to live without it. But in that hotel room, I was flesh. Pure, desperate, begging flesh. It was no longer just an affair. I was building a second life, and I was good at hiding it. I had a full routine. I packed lingerie beneath folded jeans. I set fake dentist appointments. I left a half-filled grocery list on the fridge as my alibi. I deleted text threads and silenced his number. My lies were polished like pearls, wrapped in smiles, and sealed with bedtime stories to my children. But every lie added weight to my bones. Even Chase noticed. "You are quieter lately," he said one afternoon as we lay tangled in his condo, his fingers sketching slow circles across my hip. "I am tired," I whispered. "Of me?" he asked. "No," I said. "Of pretending I am not someone else when I am with you." He kissed the space between my ribs. I let him. The next day, Ethan sent a text from the office. "Do not forget, dinner with Harold and his family tonight. Very important." I stared at the message until my heart began to pound. Harold Bentley. Chase's father. The CEO of Ethan's firm. Family dinner. It took everything inside me not to scream. I wore a beige dress that night, conservative, soft, nothing like the black lace Chase tore off me the day before. I applied light makeup and tied my hair in a bun like a woman with nothing to hide. Ethan looked at me in the hallway mirror before we left. "You look lovely," he said, brushing my shoulder. It was the first compliment I had heard in over a month. I smiled like it did not come too late. The Bentley's house was cold and sterile, decorated with abstract paintings and silver vases. Chase opened the door, wearing a gray dress shirt that barely hid the tension in his arms. His jaw clenched the second our eyes met. I could smell yesterday on his skin. He kissed my cheek. My knees buckled. "You are glowing," he whispered. I nearly slapped him right there. We sat across from each other at a long mahogany table. Ethan and Harold chatted about business while Chase's mother poured wine. I chewed lamb and swallowed hard, avoiding eye contact with the man who had held my thighs open just 36 hours earlier. "You okay?" Ethan asked under his breath. "Just a headache," I said, reaching for the glass again. I tried to stop seeing Chase. I really did. I went 2 weeks without responding to his calls. I even bought Ethan lingerie from Victoria's Secret, peach silk with thin straps. I cooked him dinner. I lit candles. I told him I missed him. We had sex that night. He lasted 3 minutes. No kiss. No words. No eye contact. Afterwards, he said, "Thanks, babe," and rolled over. I lay in silence, staring at the ceiling, tears soaking my hairline. The next day, I texted Chase, one more time. But it was never just once. It never could be. Our meetings became more dangerous. I started taking bigger risks. Once, I let him sneak into our home while Ethan was away on a business trip. Chase pushed me against the laundry room wall, fucking me with my children's socks tumbling from the dryer beside us. It was insane. It was wrong. It was euphoric. But the worst part? I felt more alive in those 30 minutes than I had in 5 years of marriage. Then came the moment that changed everything. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was picking up groceries when I heard my name. I turned around to see Tasha, Ethan's coworker's wife, smiling from 2 aisles away. "Hey. Small world. You were not at Harold's event last night. We missed you." I froze. "What event?" I asked. She looked confused. "The Bentley Charity Gala. Everyone was there. Harold, Ethan, even Chase." I blinked. Ethan told me he was at a conference in Boston. I smiled politely and rushed out of the store without buying a single thing. At home, I paced the living room. My stomach twisted. Something was off. Ethan never lied. Not about work, not about business trips. I checked his laptop. Password changed. I checked his cologne drawer. A bottle missing. I checked his dry cleaning tags. Friday pickup. Saturday return. But he left Thursday night. I stood still, hands trembling. My husband was hiding something. And I was not sure I had the right to be mad, until I found a photo in his email inbox, which he forgot to log out of on our iPad. A woman. Half his age. Sitting on his lap at the Bentley Gala. Champagne in hand. His hand, on her thigh. They were laughing. My husband was fucking someone else. I dropped the iPad. Something inside me broke, but not in the way I expected. I did not scream. I did not cry. I laughed. A bitter, painful laugh. Because for all my sins, I never imagined Ethan would do the same. And yet, here we were. 2 people under the same roof, both ultimately fucked. I stared at that photo of Ethan and his shiny new plaything for a long time. Her smile was the kind that came from being wanted. Her hands rested lightly on his shoulder, not possessive, but familiar. She knew what he liked. I could see it in her eyes. That knowing glint. It should have shattered me. But all I felt was relief. I was no longer the only villain in our house. For weeks after, we lived like shadows. We shared the same bed, same schedule, same routine, but there were no kisses. No hellos. No warmth. Just stiff nods, coffee mugs, and careful silences. I still packed the kids' lunches. He still mowed the lawn. We were a family in appearance only. I did not confront him. And he never brought up the charity event. It was like we were both waiting, silently daring the other to crack first. Chase kept calling. I stopped answering. My stomach turned at the sound of his name. He was the escape I used to run toward. Now he just reminded me of everything I had become. I began to notice how broken I really was. I had lied, cheated, and disrespected a decade-long marriage. I had turned my body into a battleground of guilt and lust. I was a good mother, but a horrible wife. Still, the fact that Ethan had his own secrets made me feel less like a monster and more like a mirror. We were both damned. The final blow came unexpectedly. It was a Friday morning. I was folding laundry when I heard Ethan's voice echo from the living room. I followed the sound. He was on speakerphone. Talking to someone. Yes, I am sure she has no idea. She still thinks I was in Boston that weekend. I froze. The voice on the other end chuckled. Damn. You think she is clean? No skeletons? Ethan laughed. Amanda, come on. She is a housewife. She has not worn perfume in 2 years. I swallowed a gasp. He had no idea I was standing 10 feet behind him. I backed away before I was caught, heart pounding. Rage boiled in my veins. Not because he had lied, but because he thought I was stupid. Later that night, I opened our bedroom drawer and pulled out a brown envelope I had tucked away for weeks. Inside were printouts, screenshots, hotel receipts, Chase's texts, even photos I had secretly taken of him kissing my collarbone. I had planned to burn it. But something in me changed. I booked a therapy appointment. Not for us. For me. My first session was 2 hours long. I sat across from a woman named Lisa who looked at me with eyes that did not judge. I told her everything. About Chase. About Ethan. About the numbness that had crawled into my chest and made a home there. When I left, I felt a little less heavy. But reality was not done with me yet. 2 weeks later, I was summoned for jury duty. The case? A high-profile divorce. I showed up, half annoyed, half curious. I never expected to be selected. But then the plaintiff walked in. And my heart stopped. It was Ethan. He looked stunned the moment our eyes met. He had filed for divorce. And never told me. I stood. Your Honor, I know the plaintiff. The judge raised a brow. In what capacity? I am his wife. Gasps filled the courtroom. The bailiff looked like he had seen a ghost. Ethan stood frozen, red-faced and rattled. The judge sighed. Clear the court. Within minutes, I was pulled aside. I asked to speak with the judge privately. That conversation led to a more shocking decision. The judge recused himself from the case, and, because of overlapping conflicts with available judges, the court assigned a temporary visiting judge for the hearing. That judge was me. Not for Ethan's divorce, but for another similar high-profile case happening the same week. It was not poetic justice. But it reminded me of something I had forgotten. I still had power. Even if I had lost my dignity. Ethan and I finally had the confrontation we had been avoiding for months. I saw the photos, I told him flatly. You and the intern. He looked stunned. You snooped? I laughed. You really think that is the problem here? His jaw clenched. You were never here, anyway. You stopped trying years ago. And you stopped seeing me long before that, I said. I begged you to touch me. I cried in the kitchen, Ethan. You looked right past me. He said nothing. I continued, I cheated on you. With someone younger. Wilder. I made stupid, selfish choices. I broke our vows. He blinked. I threw the envelope on the table. Here. Proof. I do not need you to find out through whispers. He picked it up. Is this a joke? No, I said. This is me, finally being honest. We separated a month later. Quietly. No war. No drama. Just the quiet burial of a love that rotted from neglect. He moved out. I stayed with the kids. Chase texted one last time, I heard what happened. If you need. I blocked him. It has been 8 months. I am not proud of who I became. But I am not ashamed either. I learned that marriage without intimacy is starvation in disguise. I learned that cheating does not always come from lust, but from longing, from numbness, from being invisible. And I learned that once you cross certain lines, there is no going back. I was not just unfaithful. I was ultimately fucked, by the choices I made, and by the woman I became when no one was watching.